I'm super excited to introduce you to my guest, Ilana Sparrow, because we're going to go pretty woo-woo on you. So if you are not into the whole woo-woo world and you don't even know what woo-woo means, stay tuned, stay listening, because we're going to be introducing some things to you that you're probably doing already and you don't even know it, and how it's affecting you, your business, and the animals that you care for. Hi, I'm April Hampton, and I designed my home-based dog sitting and daycare business so that I earn well over 6 figures in sales annually while working less than 30 hours a week, giving me the freedom I desired and fulfilling my purpose while doing what I love. And this is the first home-based dog sitting business podcast that shows you how to think, act, and be the top dog CEO from the inside out, while applying fundamental principles of the universe to proven business strategies, processes, dog management, and marketing techniques, so that you actually create a business that supports your ideal lifestyle. A dog business you love because it is emotionally, physically, mentally, and financially sustainable. This is the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Thank you for joining. Today, I am super excited to introduce you to my guest, Ilana Sparrow, because we're going to go pretty woo-woo on you. So if you are not into the whole woo-woo world and you don't even know what woo-woo means, stay tuned, stay listening, because we're going to be introducing some things to you that you're probably doing already and you don't even know it, and how it's affecting you, your business, and the animals that you care for. Ilana is a multimodality healer and animal communicator. She's a Reiki Master, and she teaches people like you and I how to do Reiki for both humans and animals, if you want to go that far. So if this is something of interest to you, then just stay tuned. And if it's not, stay tuned anyways, because you're probably going to learn a lot of things. I know that I have already. So welcome, Ilana. I appreciate you being here. How are you today?
Thank you, April. That's so sweet. I'm great. I'm here and I'm excited. And we were just talking before we started recording about how important getting this message is, like getting this out in the world so that people can start to hear what you call woo-woo, which I think is one of those terms that, the mainstream world has kind of done that to sort of sideline what is sort of what I would consider natural and normal for all human beings and animals. And so we're going to try to like deconstruct that and break that down and, hopefully make it like, I don't know, more exciting and less
Woo-woo?
free and woo.
Perfect. That's what we need. I think that's what we need. I think, there's a lot of people out there that are into this. I've seen it gain a lot of traction over the last decade or so, but there's still a lot of people that are unaware of it. So first, before we dive into the stuff that you deal with, first tell me what brought you to this, specialty of yours.
Yeah. Well, the long and winding road. So I as a child, like as a young child, I was really intuitive. But when you're a little kid and you have things happen and you can hear animals and sense things with people like empathically, or in my case, like clairsentiently also, and very much clairvoyantly, uh, you don't know you don't know what that is. You're just a kid, like you don't know. And of course, I grew up in a household where that wasn't okay. It wasn't spoken about. It's a very scientific and rationalist kind of household. So I was being constantly invalidated. And
Yeah.
that's, absolutely love my family. That this
Right.
was their journey and this was my journey and is what it is. But they didn't really know how to handle this. And so while all of this stuff was very natural, I was very kind of confused. And this is really a normal thing. There's so many people in this line of work that would tell you similar stories. But I do share this. I like to share this because there are probably people listening. They'll be like, oh my God, yeah, that was me, you know?
Yeah.
Because what
Right.
ultimately often happens is you shut this stuff down. So what I call that, I mean, they say is like, I truly believe that all people are born with intuitive gifts. I truly believe that all people have so much more what I call superpowers. Everyone has it, but it's really to the degree that it's been shut down. Like, so some people are like absolutely not aware. Some people are constantly struggling with the doubt and they don't think that they ever can. Some people always have been open to it and they're fine with it. And it's like anything else. It's like, learning a language. You have to practice it. You have to study it. You have to learn it. And in the case of like any kind of, if it's communication work or psychic work or healing work, whatever, it doesn't matter which one. You have to be a student of that and you have to practice, practice, practice. And you also have to do your own healing because
Mm.
if you do your own healing, you will start to release all of the blocks, what I call programming, meaning like the stuff that we're getting from parents invalidating or society or whatever that's telling us, oh, this is just silly. This is made up. That's your imaginary friend. No, you don't really hear your cat, like whatever it is, right? That,
Yeah.
that unfortunately is the truth. You do hear your cat, or that imaginary friend probably is like a higher dimensional being that's formless, right? So
Yes.
like there are all these things that like deliberately get invalidated, and I am sort of part of my mission is to help people like reclaim their gifts.
Mm.
So,
Beautiful.
and that of course encompasses animals, and we've so much to talk about with animals because I think that animals are part of helping us on this journey.
Yeah.
They really are. They do so many things for us. I mean, we could go through all of that, but part of the of reclaiming that is like working with them.
Hmm. Absolutely. Good. So when did you wake up to your gifts? If when did you realize they were gifts and not, just weird
Not
or
curses, not curses.
yeah, not curse.
I mean, I was really, really afraid. Like I've had so many things happen over the years, like so many things happen that have been like quite shocking, like with, clairvoyant dreams or visions or things that have like saved my life, but would also freak me out. And so I think I just wasn't ready because I didn't understand it. And it's funny because I should just preface all of this by saying, like, I'm married to a wonderful man. We've been married a really long time, but like he always kind of knew I was really intuitive, but he never like really thought past that. And it was a really big thing when I really started to lean into all of this and just open to all of this, which was back during like the pandemic lockdowns when the world
Oh,
got really quiet. I
yes.
needed that kind of cocoon in the quiet to hear myself and to
Yeah.
not be so busy and distracted, right?
Mm.
And it was during that time that I bizarrely I don't know how I didn't know, but like honestly, I never thought to ask. Um, I realized I could channel healing energy, like higher dimensional energy. I could, with my hands, I could do energy healing. And I was like, oh my God, like I've always been able to do this. Obviously, it was always something that was there because I knew from like a really early age, like I was one of those people like babies and animals, especially animals, like they were all coming to me and I would know things. Like I'd hear them, but also I would be like, oh my God, I think that dog has cancer. Oh, that
Wow.
dog has a lot of pain in its right hip. Or like so that's medical intuition.
Yeah.
I would have that a lot, like even from an early age for humans too.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that actually I never shut that down. I just never cultivated it either.
Yeah. Okay.
Like this sort of thing, like everyone that knew me knew I did that, but we didn't label it as anything.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'll just tell a quick anecdote about that because I think that this is for people who may be going through this. As someone who is very clairsentient, which means clear feeling, which means that it's an intuitive um, gift or one of the channels that you can feel what others feel. So it's
Mhm.
a physical thing. In other words, like if you're sitting there, April, with a headache, and I'm tuning into your energy, I can go, ooh, I feel your headache. But the thing is, like now I can separate, like I know it's me and I know it's you, and I can feel this or that. But back in the day for ages, I didn't know. So I was always picking up other people's pain and
Yeah.
also animals' pain. And
Yeah.
also as an empath, their emotions.
Mhm.
And it was constantly getting all mixed up into my energy. And it was really, honestly, a struggle to get through the day because, like, I could be fine in the morning by the end of the day, especially living in New York City for a long time. Whew, it was
Oh,
really tough.
yeah.
And I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand about energy hygiene. I didn't understand about protection. I didn't understand any of that. Like, nobody would have taught that.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
did how did you learn about it? How did you learn that that's what it was? And, was it
Well,
during
yeah.
the pandemic or, the lockdowns or yeah.
Yeah. I during all that, I have horses and I was riding with this woman who was a professional psychic. I mean, like literally it's like her job. And she specialized actually in missing people and she trained a lot of law enforcement around the country on using their intuitive gifts. And
Uh-huh.
I happened to become friends with her. And this was a time when like you didn't have much social interaction because of like but you still were allowed to go see your horse and whatever. So she started teaching me stuff, which I guess she probably, and she's psychic, she probably sent something. And then we wound up like working together privately, like just one on one. And I think just having this person validate and explain things, like we went through, clairvoyance and clairaudience and clairsentient, and it was like, oh, that's what that is. And like it was like light bulb moments all the time. And as
Yes.
soon as that kind of came out, like, oh, I'm not like weird or crazy or this, I'm not imagining this stuff, right? It's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really helped because then I started to like open up to it and own it. And then, like I said, I never thought to try the healing stuff with my hands, but during that time period, like my son needed it and my dogs needed it, and I was like, oh, I could channel energy, like, oh my God. And it made sense because there were things that had happened when I was in the past where, I would like sit with someone who was really sick and just hold their hand and they would feel better. I
Mm,
wasn't, I mean, it must have been happening, but I wasn't like conscious of it.
yeah.
And anyway, the point being, I started to like become conscious of it, and then I started to learn all about. I've studied literally thousands of hours with many wonderful teachers, but at this point, I've studied like intuitive healing. Um, I've done up to like spiritual leadership, uh, mentorships. Like I've taken so many different levels of Reiki, but I mean, like, and I with Reiki, I mean, there's Reiki 1, there's Reiki 2, there's Reiki Master, and there's other stuff. But I like to retake. Like, I'm a big one on different teachers and retaking. So I've done so many different ones. But
You
uh,
learn something new every time still, right?
yes,
Yeah.
because every time you go through a training, you're a different person every time,
Yeah.
and you're healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're healing and
What?
growing. Go ahead and grab yourself some water. But yeah, I agree. You're healing and you're growing. And I can't tell you how many times I've revisited podcasts or even audiobooks. I like to listen to books and it's I hear it a completely different way than I did the first time. It's pretty amazing. And I get new aha moments and I get new light bulbs and new ideas and so I'll take sometimes my most favorite books and I'll listen to them over and over again, maybe once a year or once every couple of years, because every single time I listen to them, I grow further. It's really a beautiful thing.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you always want to keep being a work in progress.
Yes,
I think that's
absolutely.
the best way to look at it. We're always healing.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Oh,
so
go
yeah,
ahead.
so Reiki Master Teacher is what I do now. So I teach it. And I love teaching it, by the way, still healing, right?
Yeah.
And I do animal Reiki. So animal Reiki on animals, but also animal Reiki Master, so I can teach it.
Okay, very good. Okay, so that leads me right into what I wanted to ask you next, which is what are the different modalities that you use? But let's start with the clairs. Can you break down for anybody out there who's not familiar with, clairvoyance, clairsentient, all that? What are the different ones, and what are some signs of each one that could maybe that people may have had when they're younger, even now, and they don't even realize that that's what it is. And that chances are, they could
Oh,
grow that if they
absolutely.
wanted
I call them like the subtle senses. So, we have our physical senses, like the five main ones, and we have subtle senses. And so clairvoyance is famous. I would say people know that. That's seeing in your mind's eye, or the third eye, they call it, right? That's it could be dreams, colors, visions, pictures. There's sort of it can come out in different ways and at different times.
to. Mm-hmm.
There's
Okay.
also clairaudience, which is clear hearing, which that one gets a bad rap because I'm hearing voices. I must be crazy. No, maybe you're not actually. Maybe you're just hearing your intuition. That's one that I use a lot. And you have to, again, start to really fine tune it. But that could come in different ways. It's a gift, but yeah, you might hear, it might be like your own voice. It might be like you're hearing different voices. It might be, a lot of times, like for me, like I'll hear the animals, I'll hear it.
Okay.
And I
As
guess,
if they're, wait, as if they're talking to you?
yeah, like a
Okay.
conversation.
Wow. Okay.
And like they're telling me things. And then sometimes with clairaudience, like Beethoven, he was almost deaf, right? And he wrote some of the best music like ever. And he was supposedly very well, they wouldn't have called it clairaudient, but he was, because he would see like the music and see it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I know that sounds a little like clairvoyance, but it was like a mixture. So
Okay.
he was able to kind of do his writing almost with the intuitive gifts.
Wow. Okay.
And another one, a big one, is claircognizance. So that's
Mm.
clear knowing. And most people use this. They just don't know they're using it,
Yes.
because that's just like something. Like you
Yes.
know it in your bones.
Okay. Yeah.
And really what that is a synthesis of all the other clairs. Like
Oh.
your higher self is it's putting together all these things. So it's putting together what you feel and what you're empathically picking up and what you're, clairaudient, whatever. It's putting all these pieces together and then you just kind of know it. That's
Yes. You don't know how you know it, but you know it, but you're knowing it because it's all coming together.
that's
And
exactly what it is. And
okay.
again, that one is a fantastic clair to use, but that takes, I think, some practice, because you have to be able to distinguish that from what I call like the ego mind or the monkey mind, which is like you, your ego, what it wants, what it's sort of saying, which may not be remotely the same thing. And
Yeah.
it
Which
can,
your whole belief system and everything can get caught up and mixed up with that, I'm assuming, right?
yeah. So like I always like to use an example of like winning the lottery. So many people say, "Oh, well, I want to, or I know I'm going to win the lottery." Da da da. And it's like, no, well, it's probably 99% of the time your ego mind like wants you to win the lottery, and you just start to
Yeah.
think that, and you like get yourself caught in that whole system. That's not the claircognizance. So it's learning to distinguish these two things. So that's where the training and the practice comes in. So another one is, I mentioned it before, but clairsentience. And this one's important, I think, for people that work with animals. That's like feeling in the physical. You're getting all kinds of information in your body.
Okay.
So, you might pick up that the dog is hurting. You may pick up that the cat feels nauseous, because
Oh,
you may start to feel it, but it's not you, it's not your energy.
interesting.
Um, and you're basically like gaining information from the external, but like using your body as the sort of tool where it's processed through that. I mean, you are always obviously processing everything through your body, but like it's coming out and expressing in the physical. So again, learning to tune into that, like, back to the example of like I'm talking to you. If I came here to talk to you and I was feeling fine, and then we start and I'm connecting with you, and then I'm like getting this headache, learning to distinguish, like, that might be April's headache. Like, I'm just getting, the clue that she's feeling this or that. And the same goes for the next one, which is Claire empathy, the empathic stuff, which is like feeling and reading the emotions. And people do that all the time. I
Oh,
don't know anyone that can't, like, walk in a room where there's just been like a big drama or a fight
yeah.
and sense that energy, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
animals are so much more intuitive and open to all of that, obviously, because they haven't had the programming that we've had.
Yeah.
And so they're constantly doing that. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how heightened that is for them, right?
Oh,
So they're
yes.
constantly reading us, our bodies, our emotions, our thoughts.
Yes.
And, imagine how much they're taking in all the time. Like, we're so clueless about this. So those
Yes.
are the big ones. And then there are other ones like clairgustance, which is like taste, like
Oh,
this, like taste. So sometimes you
what's
can,
that called again? Claire what?
clairgustance.
Gustance.
Yeah,
Okay.
like taste. That one, I'd say that comes up, like I've studied mediumship to advanced level. That kind of comes up more for me with mediumship. Like sometimes I'm getting information through taste. Like,
Oh, wow. I've never
maybe
heard that one.
the person I'm connecting with was a smoker and
Oh.
I'm suddenly tasting cigarettes. Like that would be a clue.
Oh,
That would give me
okay.
some information, like as an example.
Yeah.
And then like smell. And I'm sorry, I'm like spacing Claire. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember because I'm having like a complete
It's
mental
not scent. It has
salience. Yes.
okay.
So
Okay.
smelling. So
Yeah.
that same idea, and that comes up a lot for people too. Like, they may suddenly start smelling chocolate chip cookies, and
Yeah.
there isn't anyone baking or whatever, and that could be like something coming through. It could be like a loved one that used to bake that for them. It could be
I I
um
have a story on that. When I first bought my house, I would come home sometimes, and I'm a non-smoker, and I would smell either a cigar or a pipe. I couldn't figure it out.
oh yeah.
And I would walk around the house sniffing to make sure something wasn't on fire,
Right.
and it would always be really strong scented right by the front of the living room, by the big picture window in the front, or like the foyer by the front door, like around that area. And then a couple months in, I had dinner with my neighbors who have lived here their whole lives, raised their kids here, everything. So they knew the couple that lived here before the flippers that bought the house before they sold it to me, right? And so I only knew the flippers. They sold me the house. But a year before that was a couple who grew up here, raised their kids here, live side by side with my neighbors for their whole lives. And I asked them what happened to the husband, because I know that the woman had gone into an independent living or something, and she was well into her 90s already. But I knew the husband had passed. I just didn't know how long or any details. So I started asking, poking some questions, and I didn't tell him why I was asking. And then I said, did he smoke? And did he smoke or, have cigars on occasion? And they said, oh, he always had a pipe in his mouth. Always had a pipe in his mouth. And I went, oh my gosh, he's at the house still.
What you're telling me is I just got chills, which is like my validation for you.
Oh,
Yeah, so he goes back there, he's hanging out.
yeah, yeah. And I talked to him, and I told him it was okay. I was going to take care of his house, that his wife was okay. She went to a place where people take care of her and
Right.
things like that. And I said, it's okay. You can go. I'll take care of your house for you. And I haven't, it took a few months. It took 6, maybe even 8 months. And my dog would wake me up in the middle of the night barking at the corner of the ceiling in the bathroom at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning often. And I had other signs too, but it was the smell. I could smell
Yeah,
the pipe so strongly. It was so
that's a great example right there. And
okay.
that's like you using that gift, which
Yeah.
clearly clued you in between the dog barking at strange times at strange places and that, and then made you ask the question. So then basically with that whole story, you validated yourself.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. That's what I'm talking about. Like you had that sense, but like how could you know that you were right? Like you weren't sure, but you thought, and then you got the information and you're like, oh yeah. So like the next time something like that happens, you'd be like, oh, I know this. But again,
Right.
animals, once again, your dog's probably seeing that guy.
I think he did.
They don't
Yeah.
have, you know, the veil is not that strong, right? And
Yeah.
animals, obviously, they have a totally different sense and they're not afraid. It's
Yeah.
not the same thing. They don't have the programming around it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Nobody's going to shame them or tell them they're weird or make them feel like they're different. Yeah.
it's very natural to them, right? So
Absolutely.
so yeah, so you absolutely experienced that. And then you were using that sense, which
Very.
in that case, that was the obvious one for you to pick up on that.
Yeah.
Let's say that you were really, really clairvoyant, maybe you would have seen him standing there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now
Right.
I felt him. What does that mean? One time I felt a very, very cold sense, like almost slap me across the face, but go through my
Yeah.
face to the other side.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that was that the Claire, what's that called? Is that when you're feeling or you feel the body Claire empathy or no?
Their sentience.
Claire sentience. Okay.
So that's what
Okay.
that was. And yes, and obviously when it is a spirit like that, you would feel something like that. If you
Yeah.
were like you almost kind of walk through him or he walked right past you in your
Wow.
field, you felt that. And the cold, that's often not
Yeah.
always, but that's often one of the signs.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Now, I did have a question. What is sometimes I think it's hard to discern between Claire, maybe kind of between all of them, the sentience, the cognizant,
Yeah.
and the empathy,
Yeah. So
right?
the empathy is like specifically around sensing how other people emotionally feel. It's like you're reading the emotions.
That's more of the emotional side. Okay, that's what I have more so than sentient. Then I'd
Yeah,
say. Okay.
emotions. Although no, because you were definitely sentient. If you felt the cold, which is a physical sensation, that's
Yeah.
the sentience.
Okay, but that doesn't happen often. That
Yeah.
my
So if you're
dog doesn't
constantly
happen more.
reading, like, because you work with animals all the time, you're constantly going, "Ooh, this animal's really anxious."
Yes.
Feeling that as an emotion, then you're using your empathy, but also possibly also like as a distinction with that, like for me, yes, I can read the emotion, but sometimes it like I'm taking it into my body. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden I have anxiety, even though it's not my anxiety. And
Y-
that's partly like that Claire sentience also. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm physically experiencing the anxiety. I don't just like know it. I haven't just read it. I'm physically feeling anxious, or I'm physically feeling nauseous. Or like as an example, like I said, I lived in New York City. I would get on a subway train, I would be fine. Someone would sit down next to me, and let's just say they had a bad knee. Okay. And I wouldn't know as a stranger, but maybe they were limping a little. I wouldn't have paid attention. And the next thing you know, I'm just sitting there and, it's a subway, your energy fields are kind of merging. I would start having all this knee pain. My right knee would be like killing me. And then I'd be like limping off the train. Like, what the heck? I was sitting like I was fine. And it would clear in about 10 minutes or so after not being near that person. But that's like a great example of this, like letting in, I'm not saying this is good. I'm saying like I had
Yeah, I don't want that one.
no, no. It's a great one. Again, learning how to have your energetic boundaries, learning how
Okay, yeah.
to distinguish, learning how to clear other people's energy out of your space, like all of these tools that, I work with people and I teach people this because it's made it possible for me to, use all of these senses in my work and also in my life, but not get overwhelmed or not get, like take
Yeah.
on pain and then get sick, myself or whatever it is. So now it's kind of like I almost do this like I'm a wall of glass. Like I could let the information come in and let it go right out, but it's giving me information. So I'm using it in the way that you would use your physical senses to learn
Yes.
about the world around you. It's just that you're using your subtle senses. Like I said, we all have them. It's just a degree of like, how developed are they and how much are you actually paying attention?
Conscious of them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, first you have to know what they are and know the signs, the symptoms, the signals, whatever, right? So
Absolutely.
that's really fascinating to me because now that you mention it that way, that makes complete sense because before I started my dog sitting, dog boarding, and daycare business, I had come to this massive awakening that I was very empathetic and that was a lot of my troubles with certain people in my life. And when I'd hang out with them, I would always, not feel good afterwards, right? And I think, I started learning more about empathy and or being empathetic and, all this stuff. So I started developing those tools to have those boundaries and knowing when to know, being more cognizant or aware of when I was having these lower feelings around people and making sure I protected myself in that way. However, I never put two and two together when I started my pet business, and at first I had all these anxious dogs coming in because, well, at first I didn't have a whole lot of anxious dogs, but right after I started in 2019, so 2020 was kind of quiet. At the end of 2020, it blew up, and now I had all these new puppies that were never allowed to socialize. And so here they were, extremely frightened of every single little thing in the world because they hadn't experienced anything yet. And when they'd come into my home and they're whining and they're barking or they wouldn't even have to be whining or barking. You could just sense how anxious they were. And I couldn't go out of a room or I couldn't be around them without it affecting me. And I was
You
definitely,
would almost be like, oh, you're feeling all this anxiety. You're taking it into yourself.
yeah, I was always rushing. I was
What
always,
anxiety? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was so wild. And it took a little while, but I finally realized one day that I was feeling very anxious and that I was picking up on it from the dogs
Yeah.
or a dog. And
Yeah.
then I started recognizing how much it was affecting the entire pack of dogs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, and interestingly enough, like we said off camera before we started this, is we often attract and help those with the things that we need help with, right? And
Yeah.
I certainly needed help with being able to become more grounded and balanced and less of an anxious rush. I was always a rushing, busy person. And I just needed to, bring it down a notch. And I always attracted all the dogs that had anxiety. And and so I ended up specializing in how to help dogs be more confident and calm in social settings and in special or in socialization.
Well,
Uh,
that's great.
yeah. So
It was a calling for you, and you needed to go through that also for yourself. And I'm sure in terms of being the second you put the awareness on it, it's like that's when you start the healing of it,
yeah,
like because obviously if you're not being consciously aware of it, you can't really deal with it. But yeah,
yeah,
you were obviously, and it also makes sense that you were calling in these dogs yourself, but also that time period you would just be having, I'm sure everyone around the country in your line of work would have been dealing with these unsocialized anxious dogs because
yeah.
the world was starting to come back, to quote unquote normal, and these dogs had no idea. They'd only been in the house. And
Right. That was their normal, the silence. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And they always had their people around all the time too.
Yeah.
So it's a huge deal. And, that kind of brings us to like all of this energy stuff and how it affects our animals, right? Because
Yes. Let's get into that.
yeah, I mean, there's so, animals are, like we said, pure and living. All of their intuition is just a part of who they are. There's no like, oh, I better, I'm getting this empathic thing. I better second guess that. And no, they don't do that. Like it is what it is. They're reading energy all the time. That's who they are. And animals in the wild, same thing. They're
Yeah.
communicating through energy. They communicate through telepathy, right? Thoughts.
Okay.
They're reading thoughts.
Okay. You
Um,
just you just solved a big mystery that I've been debating in my mind for I don't know the last 6 months or so. So thank you for
Oh, well, we can talk about that because
clarifying that.
I'm happy to talk about that because, there's more and more awareness coming out there right now about telepathy because of this. There's a podcast called The Telepathy Tapes, right? And
Yeah,
that's getting
I
like
love
so
it.
much like, buzz. And
Yes.
And it's so funny to me because like this is again, this stuff like I've always just kind of known. Like when people say like so the telepathy tapes is about autism
Yes.
and families of like nonverbal autistic kids where the parents kind of know what the kids need or know what the kids are thinking or the caregivers and vice versa. The kids are like, you know, parents are like, oh my God, the kid's like reading my thoughts. I'm like, well, what do you think? Of course they're reading your thoughts. They are using telepathy. And what is telepathy? Right? So that is like thought to thought. So what I like to say about that is it's kind of like higher self to higher self. Like if I were to talk to you, April, right now, instead of using my mouth and forming words, if I just kind of went up here in my consciousness and like sent you a thought to your higher self, and then you kind of hear it and translate it and send it back, that would be us doing telepathy.
Mhm.
And that is so, you know, my whole theory, I have a lot of theories about like neurodiversity and autism and all of the nonverbal and all that because it seems to be one of those things that's been so stigmatized in our society. But I kind of think of the nonverbal autistic kids as they're more advanced. They're
Mhm.
so much more advanced, like as souls,
Yes,
that
I do.
they can't like we're so version 2.0 and they're like version 8.0, right? Like,
Yeah,
like forget about using the words. They're just doing like the thought thing. And
right.
so that's what they're doing. And it's like we actually can do that. I believe that humans all again, it's one of those things that we naturally probably came in doing as newborns, but
Yeah,
we lost that because
right.
when we went to the written word and the spoken word and we start to rely on that, it's
And
like
what
a
was
great analogy to that is what we're doing right now to ourselves with AI. Well, we used to be able to write up our own website and we used to be able to write an email, but now we just use AI and we don't have to think. It's kind of like that, right?
true. And all the studies are confirming it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, if you think about all the stories you hear about when kids are younger or they're babies or they're little kids and they start talking about, oh, yeah, my past life or when I chose you for my mommy, or, they say all these things that adults are like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? My kid's crazy. And but when we're younger, that's not taken out of us yet. And you're right.
Right.
Then we're taught to sit at a chair and desk for 8 hours a day and to learn English or some sort of language and how to write. And it's almost like our physical senses become the barrier to our
Yeah.
our hidden or our inner senses.
And we're being completely invalidated on all the other ones. Think about it. Everything. And you're absolutely right. The whole, and it isn't just this country. I mean, it's the many countries. I think it's much
Yes.
worse in the Western
Yes, I
you know,
agree.
world. I
Yeah.
think there are countries that are way less like this, which is great. Good for them
Yeah.
because it's worse with us. But in
That's
general,
why that's why everybody wants to go east to
yeah.
study this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, even so, I mean, even countries like India, come on. I mean, like they're, you know, yes, they have those fantastic traditions or Tibet or, you know, but they still, I mean, they're using speech, they're using
Yeah.
words and they're not all doing telepathy. But yes, they can do it. And telepathy. So yes, as a child, I mean, going back to like what happened, like I would always hear, I grew up with like dogs and cats and loved wildlife. And yeah, I would hear them. So when I say it's telepathy, so for me, the way that I experience it, and I believe this is very much confirmed by other people who are, you know, talking about this as well. Um, it's like it's like that thought to thought transmission.
Mhm.
Like I think of it as so. Let's just say I wanted to talk to like my dog who's over there beside me. Um, I would kind of like go up, you know, sort of tune into sort of my higher self, and I would be sending her whatever thought, whatever question, and then her answer would kind of be coming back and be translated back to me again using the intuitive senses. So for me, it's almost like hearing that conversation in my head in
Yeah.
my voice,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
in her voice. It's not in some
Right.
random other voice. It's as
Yeah.
if I was both, you know, questioning and answering, but all in
Yeah.
my head and all in my voice. But what that is telepathy. And I
Okay.
think that people don't realize it because I really do think a lot of people are doing this. And people say, like, I know that my dog is hungry or I know that my dog, whatever. Well, what do
Is
you
it
think
going
you're
well?
reading?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Like if they just know
Yeah.
that, they're getting that message, they just don't realize that they're doing that. So
Right.
I think telepathy is actually pretty natural. And I do think that we're doing it. And with
Yeah.
that, so people, like some communicators say, oh, animals communicate in pictures. Yeah, that could be part of it. And I do think that's true. So like if I'm having a session, a communication session with an animal, like let's say you asked me to talk to one of your dogs, um, I would be using all of my intuitive senses to have that conversation. So it's like happening kind of in the head, like mind to mind, but they may be sending me information clairsentiently, right? So I'm feeling whatever's going on in their body. They may be sending me that anxiety. So then I could emotionally, I can feel the anxiety, and maybe I'll even know, ooh, they have a lot of anxiety. They're holding it in their fourth chakra, the heart chakra. It's about relationships. Like, I might get more information from that. They may
Yeah.
be sending me some pictures. This happens all the time. Like, like a horse might send me a picture of like its friend, or it might send me a picture of a horse that it passed away that it misses. It might send me a picture of, its favorite like place in the pasture to hang
Oh,
out.
yeah.
And I of course, like I work remotely, so I don't, I won't know what the horse's pasture looks like. I don't know anything. I don't know that it lost a friend. Like that's going to come up in the conversation. But
Right.
it'll be validated when I say to the horse's person, like, okay, well, they're showing me this like big oak tree with shade and da da da, and this is their favorite spot. Or like a dog, very often, like the dog might show its favorite toy or treats, or it may be that like I was working on a dog that it was terminally ill, and she didn't have much time actually. And she was showing me like the beach. Well, she really wanted to go back to the beach.
Oh,
She wanted, like, that was something that she really wanted to do before she
yeah.
passed.
Oh,
And so you might get the images, but you kind of have, you're putting it all together
yeah.
in
Yeah.
that conversation
So
that you're
it's, yeah,
having.
you're
Thought.
yeah. So now some people, especially people that haven't studied as much as you have and hasn't cultivated your gifts as much as you have. What would you say that they usually have one or two, like Claire, that kind of stands out the most, that can
Yeah,
tell them, hey, you actually do have
yeah,
these gifts? And, maybe that, isn't it that one of them is usually more prominent than the other, at least in the beginning?
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that so I think that everybody has stronger ones and weaker ones. Like it just as like with your five physical senses, some people
Right.
need glasses like me, and some people have great hearing, right? And some
Yeah.
people like can smell better than other people. So
Yeah.
just like that, right? You may be super clairvoyant, and you are because you have these crazy dreams, and like your dreams are kind of, like precognition, like you might know future things from your dreams. That would be a really strong sign that you're super clairvoyant.
Okay.
You might have, maybe you've always been really good at medical intuition, like what happened with me. Like you just kind of always know. Like I would know, like, I mean, this was years ago, but my grandmother started having mini strokes,
Mm.
and like no one else knew anything was wrong. And I was like freaking out. She's having strokes. She's having strokes. And like my family was like, oh, whatever, crazy lady. And I'm like, no, no, no. And they got a baseline scan. She was having like these tiny little things. They would be like episodes. And I'm like, nope, nope, it's strokes. And eventually, of course, over time, they could see it all happening, like when they rescan. But like,
Right.
I don't know, I must have been about maybe 2 years prior to when like the doctors would have said, oh, she's having.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it mattered because she wound up like ultimately getting, it was horrible,
Oh,
like vascular dementia from all of that. But
wow.
and even then, actually, that was really interesting because she wound up kind of being completely like a prisoner of her physical body, so she could no longer speak. She
Oh my
couldn't take care of
goodness.
herself, but
Yeah.
she was still in there. So I
Yeah.
would be able, like, it was so traumatic and horrible because I didn't yet have all of like my abilities like that I could really control, but I would like be sensing the frustration in her, sadness, and her this and her that, and I knew she was trying to tell us things. And again,
Yeah.
that would be telepathy that you could, you know do that, but at the same time, like I was younger and it was so like upsetting to see
Right.
like this. And anyway, but yeah, so people who are, suffering from dementia, people who are in comas, people who are nonverbal autistic, all of these things you can communicate with them,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay, so in a situation, if you're, if you're dog boarding and or doing daycare, or pet sitter, or even a dog walker, there's obviously things then that if someone is feeling that other dog's energy, then
Yeah.
there's a good chance that they're probably um, clear empathetic, right? Is that right?
Well, if they're feeling the emotions,
It's
like
their
very
emotion,
strong
yeah.
emotions,
Sorry,
yeah,
their
that they're using
yeah.
their empathy. They may
Or if
just,
they just have a knowing, like I always know
yeah.
when a dog is sick or there's something
Yeah. Okay,
health-wise.
so that's your claircognizance. That's so
Okay.
claircognizance. And claircognizance is a common one, and it's a really great one. I think it's a fantastic clair to lean into. Like I
Okay.
said, it's one of the best ones because it's not going to like steer you wrong once you get used to it. You have to just trust your knowing. And
Yeah.
once you validate enough times with that, you'll be like, yeah, no, I know what that knowing is versus I want to win the lottery and
Yeah.
in my
Versus ego.
the false knowing, that's the ego.
Right.
But once you can just sort of distinguish between the two, it's pretty easy. And yeah, then you rely on that. That's giving you such an important amount of information, right?
Yes.
And what I'll try to explain that better, which is that our conscious mind is only taking in a small fraction of everything that's happening around us, not just in the physical, but also like the energetic, right? So we
Yeah.
can only hold like less than 10% of what's happening, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And process that. And so when you think about that 90 something percent that's still happening that we just aren't holding in our conscious mind, that's where our subtle senses are taking that in and processing that and then bringing it to our attention. So I like to say like the sort of subtle senses, it's kind of like flagging like, hey, take note, and it's giving us that information, because otherwise we'd be taking in constantly all the time, like we couldn't function. And by the way, this is where we get with like the neurodiversity, right?
Mm,
Because
okay.
like ADHD, which I happen to be, yeah, we don't have the filters. We're taking in so much more. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Like it's exhausting, quite frankly, because
Yeah.
like we know a lot more. That's how come our brains are like we're wired differently, we're working differently, but it's easier for us, I think, to tune into these more subtle senses to,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah. Let me ask you now. Can dogs have like ADHD? Can they be ultra, sensitive that they're
so
basically like, wow, just
I
overwhelmed
think
with
so. I
information?
absolutely do think that everything that can happen and is possible with the humans is also happening with our animals. Like I have actually the horse that you can see behind me in that photo. I have two horses. That guy, he's ADHD and he's on the spectrum. Like he's super high functioning.
Wow.
He's ADHD. Okay, like having an ADHD horse, that's a whole other story. But he's like beyond sensitive and he takes things in. He's really brilliant, but he's just, it's like I have to treat him like I would a child with Asperger's. Like and that plays out differently with a different species. But yeah, I mean it's super different. Like he's super sensitive and he's socially a little bit different than most horses. And he's also really, really, really smart. And he's a fantastic mind reader.
Is he? So
So
how did you figure all that out? Did you figure all that out from those symptoms or,
uh,
all those clues, or did it, is it part of your communication ability with animals that you're able to confirm that? Because everything you just listed right there is exactly how my kind of oddball dog out of my two dogs is.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
that's important to look at. So so yes, for sure. With dogs, with cats, I mean, and same goes with everything else, right? You might have a dog with more anxiety disorder. You might have a dog that is prone to depression. You might have, a dog that almost has multiple personality disorder,
oh
right?
my gosh. I'm sure there's a ton of them.
So like this stuff, like I said, it can all happen. But the real question is, and like kind of what I like to get at is well, why? Right? Like if your dog is prone to like being sort of a depressive type, why? You know, what's going on? So like now we're getting into like the sort of spiritual causes. And this the same goes for people with whatever I'm dealing with, you know, human clients.
Okay.
But like what's behind that? Like
Yeah.
why is this animal like that or why is this person like that? Like what is going on in the unseen world, in the spiritual world, that's going to be affecting the physical world? And then in that case, once I figure that out, like how can we work on that? How can we heal that in the higher realm, so to speak, so that it's now better in the physical realm? If that
Okay.
makes
Yeah,
sense, but that's
let's go deeper on that. Tell me more. How do you figure out the spiritual realm of what's going on for them? And then how do you heal them
right.
from that?
So, like okay, I'm gonna give this as a strange example, but I'll give an example of my dog, Mabel, who is a rescue. She's an Aussie Shepherd, and we got her about the age of 1 or so. She was about to be put to sleep in the West LA shelter. And she had a very unusual and odd medical condition that was like an autoimmune disorder. It was called extraocular myositis.
Oh,
Not
wow.
common, but it was basically like her body was attacking her eyes
Mm.
and her eyeballs. Like I wish I could pull up a picture and show your listeners. Her eyeballs were like popped up out of her head and like sort of like wall-eyed,
Oh,
and it was so she couldn't see normally and she looked insane. And they didn't the normal course of treatment would be like a heavy dose of steroids. So anyone that's ever dealt with dogs with tons of prednisone on board, good luck with that. That's how we took her. We took her in with that.
oh
But anyway,
my.
we were trying all kinds of things and nothing was working. And here's where it's interesting. Um, like I said, Reiki is kind of one of my go-to things. Animals tend to love Reiki. It's amazing for them and it's very natural to them. I couldn't do Reiki for more than 2 seconds on her. She would lose it. Like she was
Really?
crap, right? It was almost as if I was adding fuel to the fire with her.
Wow.
So not only was she really sick, and we're talking like a compounding, just the medicine, huge doses of prednisone, but also other things like she was having massive diarrhea problems,
Right.
massive hunger and thirst because of the prednisone. She was
Yeah.
eating her own diarrhea. It
Oh
was
my
making her
goodness.
thicker. It was just a hole, and she got like warts all over her body, on her feet and everything because the immune system was so compromised because they're trying to get, control that so it wasn't attacking her. It was like a whole literal shit show. And I was like, oh my God, and I can't do Reiki, so I've got to use some of my other tools. Like I've got to figure out what to do because I don't know how we're going to live with this, and I don't know how she's
Yeah.
going to live with this. And it was
Yeah,
really
it's horrible for
stressful.
everyone.
It was. And so basically, like, okay, so intuitively looking at the whole situation, and I've trained in like working in the Akashic records, which is a whole other modality, intuitive healing, obviously Reiki, but like putting all that together, looking at it, like going into the records and asking for guidance
Okay,
from
wait. I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to come back to that. But
right.
for people who don't know what the Akashic Records is, please
Right.
explain that real quick so they're not
So that's
lost.
just kind of a label that we put on the idea of like a record of our soul's journey. Everybody, an animal has it, you have it, I have it, your business has it, like everything has it. It's like kind of the record of the soul's journey. So it's
Okay, even the
not just in this
businesses.
lifetime, it's your soul's journey. But it's the idea, it's like a sort of repository, almost like a Google of everything as it's ever has been, will be, right? Or is, like
Okay.
it's all. And I do think that when you deal with psychics or psychic readings, they're going in there, if someone's trying to look at like future timelines, that's what you would probably be tapping that to a certain degree. That name, the Akashic Records, is Akasha is meaning like ether in Sanskrit.
Okay.
So that the label of that was from the 1800s from Edgar Casey calling it that. It's something that has had probably different names in different cultures. Like I think in Judeo-Christian, we would have called it the Book of Life.
Okay.
So anyway, the idea is like, yeah, you go in and you can channel, you can get information. I use it for healing.
Okay. So it's almost like a recorded history, but then it's also recorded future. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes, your future timelines are always something that can be shifted.
Yeah. Okay. Because,
Um,
because people have free will.
exactly. So you
Okay.
can't, so it's like when you're doing any kind of, and I don't do like readings that way for people, but like if you're looking at that, you're looking at the path that someone's on.
Mhm.
Like you're on this path, and if you continue on this path, this is the more likely outcome,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
Again,
Okay.
that's free will, and things can shift and things can change. And right now, I'd say on this planet more so than usual, like even more so. Um, but like there's this. So with her, it was kind of going into her records and my records, and just getting information. And I talked to a mentor of mine also about it, and he said you really need to look at her. So we have different layers. We have our auric field, that's our biofield, that's the sort of light body, the energy field around our physical body that is very much connected to our physical body and the functions of our physical body. And the animals have this too. So this is
Okay.
very important as well. But like they're connected into the different chakras. There are all kinds of information. This could be like, hours of conversation just about this. Um, so basically, like he was saying, you need to look at like the layer that's kind of like her astral body. There's
Okay.
something wrong with that, and you need to deal with that. And I was like, okay. So
Is
he
that
gave
the same
that,
as
and
her?
kind of,
Is that the same as her auric field? Is that what you
well, it's
call
one of the layers.
it? Okay,
It's one
gotcha.
of the many layers. So there's different layers. It's one of the layers. So what happened was I went in there, I channeled this whole protocol. Like, okay, you are going to need to basically sort of imagine it like we're all computer programs. And
Okay.
it's like I'm going to delete that one and I'm going to download a fresh, clean, not corrupted version. So it was almost like the way that I saw it. And by the way, I know this sounds really weird, but it's like I'm trying to explain it, something that's almost impossible to grasp with like our conscious mind. I'm trying to put it in words. So it sounds a little funny, but this is just how I see it
Okay.
so that I can shift and make things, get
More
change,
tangible or
whatever
okay.
yeah, as I'm doing this work. So the way that I saw it is we delete like the corrupted astral layer here. And so imagine that what happened was, um, let's say she is version 4.0, her physical body and all the other layers of her light body. But this one layer is version 1.0.
Okay.
And so it's completely corrupting the code. Like
Yeah.
into her physical body, out, everything is totally, it's going through this, it's totally messed up.
No
And
synchronous.
so it is causing all of the disconnects, all of these issues, the problem with the eyes, everything. I mean, she was so hypersensitive. She was so reactive. She, like our housekeepers would come and she would bark all day for 8 hours every week. Like she just couldn't settle. So there was so much, she was so on edge. Okay. So in that case, they gave me this whole, like my guides gave me this whole protocol. Like you're going to delete this thing, you're going to recast it, you're going to do this, and that. There were all these things. I basically have to like, reconnect it to all the other layers into her physical body and then like kind of tune it to her original soul frequency and all these things. I did it late one night, and my husband and my son, they didn't know I was doing it that night, but they knew I was going to try to do something, and they knew how messed up she was.
Yeah.
And the next morning, and this is where it gets so crazy, we get up and she's like a different dog. So she had this pure pink belly with white fur, and overnight there were like those darker blotches all over the belly that came in during the night. So first off, like my husband and son were like, what the heck? you know but then it just so happened I did it like the night before the housekeepers came. That next morning she's all sweet, she's all quiet, she's all calm, she's not barking. They're like, what happened to the dog? And I'm like, I think it worked. And then all the stuff, the digestive stuff, and all cleared. And
Really?
her eyes, she's off all meds, she's fine, she's better. So
Wow.
basically what it was, is if you look at like computer code analogy, like I had to upgrade, right? I had to make everything talk on the same system, but like in the energetic world, not in our, this doesn't make any sense from science because science can't explain this.
Yeah. So you upgraded her astral body field. Yeah.
The layer, the astral like layer of her light body. Yes.
Wow. And now did you do all this just just like in your mind, in your mind's eye, in your mind's ear, or did you do it all like telepathically, or did you do it with your hands or
All of the above.
all the
I'm
above?
kind of
Okay.
using energy, right? I'm running energy. I'm channeling energy. Like when I work with energy, I am getting into, so we're multidimensional.
Mm,
We live here in the third dimension reality, right? Like we are physical, dense physical beings,
yeah.
but there are versions of us that exist in higher dimensions.
Mm,
This is where we start to really go with all of this, right? So if you accept that like we're multidimensional beings,
yeah. I
so
believe.
are our animals, we all are.
Yeah.
And it's like I go up into higher dimensionals of me to, solve the issues or get the answers or whatever it is, and then
Okay.
work on that level to fix it and then come back. I guess that would, a lot of this is, I've had some training with shamanic healing. I think that when you talk about like shamanic healing, shamans like they journey, right? So that this is a sort of version of this. It's like they're journeying to other realms to
Yeah.
solve whatever the problem is of the client. So
Right.
if it's a past life thing, if it's, some kind of illness thing, that's kind of a similar analogy to what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then, I do this all the time with clients with past life stuff because I can't tell you how many times I've seen past lives being the answer to the physical problem that they're having here now, or
Interesting.
the emotional problem that they're having in this. So if it's like a lifetime that's, you know, got unhealed things that's affecting them now, it's like that's what we're going back and we're going to go in and we're going to heal that in that lifetime. So
Okay.
again, it's like kind of traveling a journey because like time is a construct here on
Yes.
this planet.
Yeah.
But when you're going up into those higher realms, it's like the time's irrelevant, right? So,
Right.
and
But it's not necessarily, is it, I mean, I don't know. Is it happening all at the same time too?
I
Or
would say probably, yeah.
yeah.
Like I
Okay.
love that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
It's that idea of all these timelines all concurrently happening, but that's kind of like I thought that was kind of brilliant and kind of channeled. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was funny and silly, but like as an example, yeah,
Right.
because
Right.
why else would it be influencing us, constantly?
Yeah. Yeah, because you do hear those stories where people like suffered from a bad shoulder their whole life and they can never figure out why. And then they have a past life reading and find out that they were, you know, a soldier in war and they got shot in the shoulder,
Yep.
or
And
something.
they find that out and they can heal that and it's gone. It's gone. Like I can
Yes.
like I
Oh,
have a human
uh-oh.
that's funny.
Oh my going wild again. We're going wild.
Computer's going crazy. Her camera's going crazy.
Yeah.
But I have a human client who has a man with this literal like a hole in his foot with
Oh wow.
sepsis and all kinds of like the hole wouldn't heal. And we were talking for years.
Okay.
Incredible pain and cellulitis, like awful stuff happening to him. And in his case, it was a question of going back into specifically, especially one past life that had happened in ancient Egypt with the bite of an asp snake.
Oh
And
my.
it was kind of nuts because the session where we went into that life and I was working and healing and whatever, and I saw all of that. So like in that case, clairvoyance, like I'm seeing that like life like a movie kind of. But anyway,
Oh,
the point is that session healing that he went home and had a massive healing crisis. Like, I mean, he was like sick, so to speak, for like 2 days. But then afterward, he felt amazing and the hole started to close because we
wow.
were getting at the root cause.
That's
So
amazing.
it's like it's actually almost done. And he said to me, you've saved me like tens of thousands of dollars because every single skin graft surgery is
Mm.
painful and expensive. And
Oh
like
my,
even tried to begin to heal it. And also he had never ever had relief, you know, so
work. Yeah.
it can work so fast and
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah. And these are all things that so many people out there might be not able to believe unless they see it, right?
I
And
think
that's,
that's right. I think
yeah.
you have to experience it. And I
You have
think,
to experience some things here and there to start opening your mind to it.
yeah, and like for animals, I think it's easier, first of all, they're way easier to work with
Yeah.
because they're pure energetic beings. And so if you're
So
sending
open.
them energy, and by the way, FYI, once I did that thing with my dog and like fixed with Mabel, then she could take Reiki. Then it was no longer like setting her on fire and painful. Then she was like, oh my God, I love Reiki. So now she loves being like in sessions. If I have people in person for Reiki, she wants to be there and she loves it. So like
Nice.
that's a great example of how, it doesn't make sense until you like sort of break it all down and you see that. But yeah, the animals take healing energy. It's very natural to them and they can shift really quickly with it.
Okay.
So, if it's cancer, if it's emotional or, depression, that kind of thing, IBS, like one of my dogs had IBS and it was like one session, boom. Like
Wow.
she was a rescue with a lot of baggage from Costa Rica. And
Okay.
so that was really easy. I mean, that was super easy. And other times, it could take a little longer, but, if they are able, if whatever their life path is and it's part of their healing to heal, if it's something major, even they can do it. Like that's why you see like miracles so often with
Mm,
dealing with animals. And
okay.
in terms of using communication, you can really get at, what are the root cause problems. Like if someone's coming to you going, oh my God, my dog is doing X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's just started, and like what's happened, you could probably get answers real fast and like
Mhm.
help them either solve the problem, like it's a human
Heal.
and animal kind of working together here to solve the problem.
Right.
It could just be, shifting something in the environment. It could be, they are missing this person who's no longer in their life. It could be that they, a lot of times, and I know we're running out of time, but animals come in to our lives with like soul missions.
Hmm.
So they're coming to work with us in some different way. And
Hmm.
a lot of times we're oblivious to that. So
Yeah.
they kind of intuitively know, like, I'm here to help this person with, love and relationships, or I'm here to heal, or I'm here to make them laugh.
Oh,
I'm here to be a teacher.
yeah.
And we need to start to pay attention to what that is and work with that because it makes that whole relationship so much more like smooth and
Yeah.
both grow and there'll be less conflict and less issues if you understand that.
Do you have to become, a Reiki energy master or certified in order to be able to do that?
No, no, no. I think you can start to tune into your animals and start to develop your intuitive senses so that you can communicate with them,
Mm.
um, and start to understand like what they're expressing, right? So if they, I mean, I'm just trying to sort of think of like one, trying to think of like
Well,
a,
I can give you an example, right? So, uh, right now, as we speak, I have two dogs here from the same family, and I know that they were both rescued from a um, a puppy mill, and in like a hoarding puppy mill situation, and one of them has been coming here for over a year and a half for half a day every other week, and then boarding off and on, and the other one's doing great. He's implementing really well. He's starting to pick up a play, learn how to be a dog. But she is just so afraid of everything. She's, to the point where she's calm and she can be a fly on the wall, but that's all she can be. And, you know, I just want so much to try, and I try to give her as much space as possible, and that has helped. Tried to build my trust with her. Now, God forbid if I stub my toe and I scream, that sends her over the edge, and then she's afraid of me again for another hour, or until I come up and pet her and say, "You're okay and you're a good girl," and try to let her know that she's not in trouble or something, right? But I don't know how to help her. I don't, I feel like it's been a year and a half and she's come a long way, but I feel like it's been so long and that I would love to help her more.
Well, I think, okay, so that kind of early start, there's a lot of damage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So would need, that would be a case where I would definitely think energy healing will help a lot. Like
Okay.
probably in this case would help a lot because there's a lot of trauma that's
Mhm.
still being held in the body, right? So
Yeah.
that has to kind of be able to be released. It would also be helpful maybe in talking to her to know like some of the triggers or some of the things that she likes or doesn't like what would help because sometimes they could tell you these things.
Yeah.
And then also um you know having this overall the time frame, it's like it is what it is, right? Like you want it to go fast but it may not be fast. It's like
Yeah.
how far that she can take it. So there's that interplay of the genetics and the wiring, the 3D genetics and all of that, and then the trauma, and then who knows what she's holding, like epigenetically speaking, from her ancestors, like all of that stored trauma, because we have that too, right?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
also the whole aspect of that connection. So maybe in her case, maybe there's stuff that she's there to teach her people.
Mm.
And maybe they need to sort of see what those lessons are.
Mm.
And,
Okay.
that could be worth exploring as
Yeah.
well.
Even
Because,
what could that apply to her pet sitter too?
well, yeah, I mean, you said you've talked about how you've called in things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, could she be here to teach me something too? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
So
she
it's
could.
to help me be aware of things, to call in things or something maybe?
Well, she could be helping you also learn how to deal with the really difficult cases. She could
Yeah.
be teaching you, patience,
Yeah.
teaching
Okay.
you to let go of all expectations
Okay.
because sometimes like they're really sensitive to expectations
Oh.
and like laying that on them, it's a whole other like layer of stress. Like depending on how sensitive they are, you know,
Wow. Never thought
they
about it like that.
yeah, so they could be like reacting to that too.
Yeah.
It kind of really helps. Like the first thing I do when I talk to them, like if I have a communication client, is I feel into them like what I call like their soul essence. Like
Okay.
who are they on
Uh,
a soul level? So like a dog like that, who is she? Because that's going to give you some information as well. Like let's just say that she happens to be a dog that really wants to please. Like
mm,
she really wants to be the good girl and always get it right and da, 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 da. And then like because of all the trauma, she can't always do that. Then
mhm,
that's compounding things for her.
mm. Okay.
Because then she's like not able to be who she really wants to be. So she's being held back. So you can see how that would play out. Um,
Yes.
so sometimes just like looking at that and getting into that and just doing a healing, like it's like one session and you're gonna see a lot of progress.
Fascinating. So
So
now you said you actually teach other people Reiki, and Reiki is based, how would you explain Reiki in an elevator pitch?
yeah, it's a form of energy healing. So
Okay.
it's one of the, there are many different forms of energy healing out there. Like,
Yeah.
Reiki is one of them. This one is coming from the Japanese tradition, hence the name, but it basically loosely translates Reiki is like spiritually guided life force energy. So it's
Okay.
helping people, I teach it, it's sort of a certification thing, and you're opening up their channels, the person's channels, to be able to channel the energy through them and out. And it's
Okay.
sort of it helps them not just with being able to heal themselves and others, but also it's kind of like for your whole life. Like it
Mm,
enhances your intuition. It gives you like tools to deal with living. So you basically like really smooth out the rough edges a lot on your life. You can feel way more grounded. You have the tools to kind of help yourself in any situation and then help others.
Nice.
So I teach Reiki. I teach animal Reiki. I should have that coming up in the fall, but people do have to take Reiki 1 and 2, the traditional human Reiki, before they study animal Reiki, because first of all, we want them to know all about Reiki and the tools which is taught, in Reiki
Yeah.
level 1 and 2. But second of all, it's kicking off a huge healing for
Yeah.
yourself, right? And the more that you're kind of healing and clearing energetically yourself, the easier it is to use your intuition, the easier it is to channel the energy. The thing is, like, healer is a misnomer, because really, you're doing the healing. The dog is doing the healing. The horse is doing the healing. The healer, have those air quotes around that, is a channel for the
Yes.
we're
Okay.
channeling energy. We're channeling like a higher dimensional energy. And if we're helping things along, we're sort of intuitively putting the pieces together. Kind of, I call myself sometimes like a spiritual detective. You're kind of figuring out the things that the pieces that need to go together that might need healing or whatever. So you're helping facilitate. Yeah, but you're really holding space and you're channeling the energy. That's
Okay.
what you're doing. So with Reiki, learning Reiki, it's a kickstarting a big shift within you.
Very
You
good.
pretty much expect to be upgraded with
Nice.
that.
Okay. Okay. So if a pet sitter or, dog walker wanted to look into this and start learning more about becoming a Reiki healer, that I could see how that would be very beneficial to their,
Oh yeah.
just for their, synchronicity and their kumbaya of their business, to make it, like you said, just smooth off all the edges, but also as a specialist, right? Because then they can attract more people who have animals that they could help, that otherwise wouldn't be able to go to a pet sitter or a dog walker because of their blockages or healing that hasn't been
Oh,
done.
I think it would add a whole other dimension to the services that you could offer too, right? Especially if you like add on animal Reiki as well and really kind of go down that road, because if somebody's sending, let's say that you pet sit in your house, or you've got a kennel or whatever, and you could be offering, while the dog is with you, you could be
Right.
doing all of this stuff. So for the anxious dogs or the dogs that have some behavioral issues, or just all of this sort of, you know, helping the animal in a whole other way, not just like I'm feeding it and I'm walking it, but I'm doing all of these other things too.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just got ripples of energy from my head to my toes while you're saying that, because
I think you're going to add this into your business.
I might, because how cool would it be if you could have a dog come to your home and, have all these fear issues seemingly on the surface, right? Just like, and it could be deep-rooted fears or whatever, but it's like they're so afraid of everything, right? They're afraid of their shadow, they're afraid of other dogs, they're afraid of strangers. And then the parents come back and pick them back up to go home, and they're calling you a day later going, "What did you do to my dog? It's my dog, a normal quote unquote dog. What
Right.
did you do?" That, I mean, what a difference that would make in people's lives,
It also helps smooth out the pack dynamics,
That too.
help
Yeah.
you, it will enhance your intuition. So that will help as well, which I think would be step one for, learning communication. Again, that's something that people can take classes in learning how to do animal communication, and take classes in developing their intuition. And, just starting that process would, that could open up a lot of doors for their business. And also Reiki, just in terms of using it for your business, right? Using the tools of Reiki to help grow your business, or, get inspired about whatever direction you might want to go in. If you're going to niche a certain way, or, serve whatever kind of clientele, or who knows,
You're
maybe
thinking about moving it. Right, exactly.
all of that. And it can
Yeah.
help with all of that. And then the animal Reiki definitely tunes you in a different way to the animal kingdom, and it gives you more tools in that direction. Like for me, it absolutely helped enhance the communication. Like when I got attuned to animal Reiki, you call it kind of getting attuned to Reiki or getting attuned to animal Reiki.
Okay.
I found that really, really helpful.
Mm.
A lot of, the tools that I use, if it's intuitive healing or Akashic records or all these things, I take them like for people, like, a lot of these teachers are teaching it like for people, but then I tweak it and I apply it to animals. Because
Okay.
it's like we're still living beings. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. They're
Um,
just more sensitive, so it probably just works even better on them. Like I think you said,
well, it
right?
works really well. We talked about you wanted me to sort of give a little demo,
Yes.
something that teach people something they can do for their animals and
Yes.
also for
Are you ready
themselves.
for
So I
that?
thought we could do that as
Okay.
well.
Let me before you do that, because I definitely want to say that for the end, and I know we're past time a little bit here, but there was one thing I thought that maybe I was going to ask you about, and I want to make sure I either asked you already and we covered that, or no, that was it. Okay, we did cover that. Okay, we are good. All right. So yes, please, for the audience who's listening, she's going to share with us a very special what do you call it? Healing energy.
Energy tool,
Yeah.
something they can use for themselves and for their animals, because and this is sort of part of stuff that like I teach and part of stuff that I'll help my clients with, but it's something that I think is great protocol for yourself and for your animals. Now, I should also preface this by saying animals are really good at clearing their own energy, at, grounding and connecting with the earth, which we're not so good at. Like we forget, right?
Yeah.
And animals are also amazingly good at clearing your energy. So
Mhm.
when you live with dogs or cats or horses, whatever, they're constantly clearing your energy, working on the energy of the space. Like, I mean, I am definitely one of those people. If I walk into a space where they're having like animals are not in a house or something, like I
Mhm.
can really feel that
Mhm.
house, it's like a stickier, denser energy in that place.
Interesting.
Into a house that has a lot of animals, it's like it's constantly being recharged and cleared. And
Oh,
they're
wow.
doing that in their environment, they're doing that for you as
Yeah.
well. And
And
so
that's why there's therapy dogs, right? Or
people
therapy.
with therapy dogs are
Yeah.
connecting to you on, they're using their healing very
Yeah.
directly that way.
Yeah.
Um, but also like cats, as an example, cats, when they purr, you always hear like, oh, cats purr when they're happy, but cats also purr when they're sick.
Oh,
Because,
really?
oh yeah, cats purr when they're sick because they are that vibration, that frequency that they're sending out there is self-healing. That's
Oh,
what they're doing.
wow. That's
But
amazing.
also when you're not well and they get on you and they're purring, they're healing you.
Wow. They're like a natural Tesla machine, or what's that? The
Like
Tesla.
they're I think they're purrs. I think there's you can go research this, but the sound frequency of that purr is like kind of matching a natural healing frequency. So like they
That's amazing.
are doing that.
Yeah.
And it absolutely is like a natural so it's
Yeah.
so normal to them, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
and they kind of know so much better than we do. Like
Oh, yeah.
body can heal, so they can self-heal. Like you'll notice that dogs are sick, they don't want to eat,
Right.
so they'll fast. But
Yeah.
that's actually kind of correct. Like we're seeing this
That's good.
more.
Yeah.
They're letting their body rest and heal. And they know, that they just intuitively know that. They're not like, oh, I better pop 3 pills and, do whatever, drink this concoction. No, they're just like, I'm
Right.
not gonna eat.
Have some chicken noodle soup.
So anyway, animals are very natural, like, and in that world, and they're living in the world of energy. And we are kind of like, yeah, we're in that world, but we're so distracted and we're so busy with modern life that we
And
feel so,
blinded by our physical senses.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're so separated from that,
Yeah.
right? So they help us get back to that a bit. And the more that we kind of tune into that, the better. Animals really try to help us live in the present.
Yeah.
And they live in the present. It's not like they're sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe you're leaving town in 3 days. Like they don't do that, right? Even if they see you packing, and they
Yeah.
might react to that a bit because they know what that means, but they're not like moment to moment, they're not doing that. They live there
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah.
And their body might hold the trauma of the past, but their mind is not sitting there like living in the past.
Yeah. Ruminating about when their owner yelled at them for going poop in the house.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. They're not holding on the way we would do that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let go better.
so there's all they live in that world in a really beautiful way, but also because they are so affected by energy, they would sometimes kind of get overwhelmed by maybe your energy because when you're going through a lot, your animal's taking it on. And I
Yeah.
think that people don't realize their animals can get very, very sick, both
Mm.
physically, physically from what's happening in the human family.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It does. I am very aware of my mood and how it makes all of the dogs in my house behave.
Yeah.
I can get up in the morning, and if I didn't get a good night's sleep because somebody was sick and we were up multiple times a night or something or other, I might wake up a little bit on the grumpy side. And, 10, 15 minutes later, I realize the dogs are all being very good and quiet today. And then I go, oh, yes, yes, they probably have picked up. And I don't have to say a word, right? I haven't even spoken out loud yet. And they know that my energy is lower, that my
I mean,
energy is
yeah,
darker or lower frequency. Yeah.
definitely. And I think this is so true. Like for people that have horses, that work with horses and ride horses, oh
Yeah.
my God, how your energy is so affects that relationship. And, when people their horses act out or this, that, and the other problem, it's like, oh my God, people, please look at yourselves first. And this is true with anything with animals, I mean, 90 something percent of the time when you're dealing with animal healing or animal communication, you have to also deal with like their people
Yeah.
because it's coming back to that. There was too much, overlap back and forth. And the person has to be willing to shift and explore things for themselves also
Yeah. To
in the
look in the mirror.
situation. Yeah.
Like a relationship, right? If you go to a relationship counselor or a therapist or something, you can't expect to go in there and just have the therapist tell your spouse they're doing everything wrong and they have to fix everything, but you're perfect. Right?
Like that. It's exactly like it's perfect. So what I was going to go through is a really quick tool that you
Okay,
can
let's do it.
tell and that you can do on your animals. I'm going to teach it for you to do on yourself, but then
Okay.
the same thing on your animal. If you feel that like there's, a lot going on, they need a little reset. If you're somebody who is, you know, holding a lot emotionally, this is a good thing to do for your animal too. I have a client that, once she started doing this on her dog, it was a night and day difference. Her dog became so much calmer and so much happier. So she just does this for her dog every day now. Like,
I'm gonna try this on my dog and then my client's dogs. So let's do
so
it.
we'll just take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, just to settle yourself and get centered in the present moment. Just breathe and let go of everything that we've been talking about and everything that it took for you to get here and listen to this today. And now what I want you to do is at the base of your spine, that's your root chakra. I want you to imagine a glowing ball of light, kind of the base of your spine. Give it a color, any color. There's no right or wrong. And imagine that light expanding out. So it's kind of going hip to hip in your body. And that it shoots down from you, down into the earth. So there's almost like a tube of light that you're now sitting on. This tube of light that's actually hollow in the middle, and it shoots all the way down, dropping down from you to the middle of the earth where it anchors you into the earth. And that's what we call a grounding cord. And now that you're attached to the earth, so you just kind of imagine this, visualize it, however you need to do it, feel it. And now what I want you to do is just start to release your energy down this tube of light. So think of it almost like a vacuum or something that's sort of connecting to the earth, and just it's going to suck out like energy that's not yours. You can release it down there. Energy that's not serving you for your highest and best good. Energy, maybe like anxiety or stress, just let it go down that tube and release it to the earth. Just letting it go. And sometimes you might feel it leaving. Sometimes you might see colors. Sometimes it might look like sluggish, thick energy, whatever it is. It may not look like anything, but you just start to visualize this and do this and just releasing that. So it's a way of grounding and releasing and clearing energy. And then the final piece, I'm kind of shortening this all up, so I know we're so over time, but is to put a gold sun at the top of your head, at the crown of your head, a gold sun. Put your name in it. And now activate that gold sun. Call your energy back to you. Call your energy back to that gold sun. So April, you'll have April in that gold sun. You're calling your energy back from people, from places, from animals, from dreams, from the past, from the future. Call your energy back to this present moment, to this time, to right now. And as you call your energy back to that gold sun gets brighter and bigger and more radiant and more powerful. That's you coming back to you. So we basically released the energy that wasn't ours, that wasn't serving us. And then we're calling our energy back. And then we just take that gold sun and we just pull it through our whole body and auric field, bringing it through your head, your neck, bringing it down through your shoulders, pulling it all the way through your whole body. You could kind of feel it coming through all the way to your feet. So you're kind of sitting in a ball of your own energy and really centered in your power. And then breathe. If you have any excess, you can always just sort of bend over and dump it out. But that centers you. How do you feel, April?
I feel better already. Yeah, I do.
It feels really good. You've just gotten rid of that energy that wasn't yours and you've called yourself back to you. So here's how you turn it around for your animals. So like with a dog or a cat, their root chakras at like that base of their tail. So just visualize a grounding cord. I mean, I always like to ask permission so you could kind of, feel in like, hey, is it cool if I work on you for a second and just see if you get a yes or a no? Sometimes you might get a no and go, oh, you'll just hear no, or you'll feel no, not the time. It's okay. But so I'm doing it to my dog. You just sort of visualize the grounding cord and send that down. Same thing, that bright light, give it a color, let it go and attach them to the earth. So you're grounding them. And then start clearing their energy. Start to go, okay, that anxiety, we're going to take that anxiety, we're going to move it down, we're going to ground it out. We're going to shift it, we're going to take off energy and emotions that's not theirs and ground that out and move that. Yeah, I know I'm working on you and you know it. She just looks up at me like, mommy, it's not yours. Energy that's not for their highest and best good. If they're, whatever they may be dealing with, you might ground that out and then put that gold sun at the top of their head, put their name in it, and call their energy back to them, and then bring that through them. So that's a nice little tip.
It was very nice.
Whatever.
I felt when the energy of the sun went through my body, I felt my stomach. I guess, I don't know if it was my root chakra or the, what's the lowest one? Or is the root?
The base of your spine. Your stomach would be your third chakra, your solar plexus.
There you go. Okay. So I felt like that got really warm.
Yeah.
Really, really warm.
You really filled in with that. So maybe what happened is you really released some stuff from there and then you replenished.
Yeah.
So you see how you already could feel that and that. But the whole thing is like just giving, people the tools and the permission to play with this.
Yes.
And it's just so fun. It's just like, a whole world.
So why does that work? Can you explain that at all? Or I guess, I mean, you kind of have throughout the whole session today in some ways, but why does it work for the dogs if you're doing it? You're just channeling it for them?
Yeah, you're just kind of helping facilitate that. And yeah, like I said, they're good. They can do this for themselves, and they do this for themselves. I mean, when you think about like two dogs, when they have, let's say, a little interaction, a tiff or whatever, at the end they stop and they shake.
Yep.
They're clearing their energy. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
They're resetting. Um,
Yeah.
so, like I said, they naturally do this. But what this is doing is it's sort of helping them if like they're taking on a lot from you, over time. It's helping them just move that along faster. It's helping them ground, which they do, but clear out energy that they may be holding. Because, like I said, they really do hold a lot for you. And they are, I mean, this is a horrible and sad story, but one of my dogs, this is a long time ago before I know, like, opened up to everything like that I have now.
Yeah.
I had this incredible dog, my heart dog, Maggie, and I was a new mom, like with a baby, and I was really struggling.
Mm.
It was really hard. I mean, my husband worked all the time, and I didn't have family support. Like, no one lived near, and it was really, really tough. I had a lot of animals and a newborn, and I didn't know
No.
what the heck I was doing. And she was just this incredible healer. Like, she had come into my life. She was a rescue that came in during the pregnancy, actually.
Oh, wow.
Tell you now, like her job was really to help my son then, like to help him along, like from
Mm.
infant to through his childhood. But
Wow.
um, so she was an incredible healer and guardian for him. But I really dumped so much on her. Like, I mean, she was there. She was taking it. She was all of the stress and the fear and the emotion, and that she was working overtime, let's just say. And sadly, I don't know, she must have been about 5 or 6. She started having seizures, and I knew something was horribly wrong. And I was like, oh my God, and I'm taking her to that really, we spent a ton of money and all kinds of tests and spinal taps and all stuff, and they
Oh.
couldn't find anything. So
Mm.
they were calling it like idiopathic epilepsy, but they didn't really have much to say because they couldn't figure it out. And I'm going, oh no, 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 this is something awful. But see, like I said, I didn't know all the energy tools. And I knew
Yeah.
there was something happening behind the scenes. And sure enough, eventually, when she was about 8, we found a cancer on her adrenals.
Oh my.
So that
Yeah.
is not random. Let me just say the
Yeah.
fact that the tumor was on her adrenal gland was a physical manifestation of the burnout, the
Yeah.
unbelievable burnout that this poor dog got from my stress and my anxiety and my letting her pick up, everything, which she did. She absolutely did. But
And she
sadly,
came here
she
for you.
died. She died at 8.5
Yeah,
because
but she came here for you.
she came here for me and my
Yeah.
son, and she did. And I know that was her thing, but like I would have liked her to stick around a lot longer. And had I known these tools and had I understood, like I knew I was really letting her take on a lot, I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't realize at the time that it would kind of cause the adrenal cancer, but it did. And
Yeah.
by the time we found it, it was too late. Like we had it was too far. There was like a very risky surgery we could have done at UC Davis. And she often, like a lot of times they die on the table with that. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to let her go.
Right.
We did, but it was a very big lesson.
Yeah. Wow. But boy, did she help to make sure you stayed on your path of purpose, it sounds
Did.
like,
And she
right?
really helped my son, I think, as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
fantastic guardian and healer and all of those things. And yeah, she opened me up to all of this, I guess, in many, many ways, because I
Yeah.
did know what
Mm-hmm.
was going on. I just didn't stop it, and I didn't realize in time. And like, so this tool that I just took you guys through, like that is huge. Like
Yes.
imagine if I had been using more of those tools on her and on me, and like, who knows how long
Yeah.
it would have been.
And we as those who take care of animals for a living can do that with any of them that we so choose at any time. So that's a
Oh,
beautiful tool to share. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Now tell me, you said that you have some classes or something coming up. What is something, if a pet sitter or somebody in the audience would be interested in learning more about this, how can they learn more from you?
So yeah, I have a website. So a light within wellness, kind of all one word there,
Okay,
.com.
I'll put it in the description too. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I have some information on the site. I'll post, I haven't yet solidified my dates, but this fall I should be running my Meet Your Magic program, but as a group hybrid. So that would be um, teaching people kind of a lot of what we talked about, to be honest, like stepping into their gifts, working with their intuition. It's kind of like an all-in-one program. It's deeply healing because we're going to do a ton of healing like each week. And really helping them, tune into who they really are and strip out a lot of that programming and the blocks and the things that are holding them back
Yeah.
and stepping into like their higher timeline. So that is coming in the fall. I'll probably have more Reiki 1 and 2 and animal Reiki 1 and 2 by the end of the year.
Okay.
And what else am I doing? Gosh, I have a workshop that I run from time to time on a platform called Ground and Gold that is about working with animal guides. And that's so much fun. So for people that really do like the woo and they want to step up into working more on a sort of spirit level with animals, that workshop goes into all of that, which is really fun, like meeting your animal guides. And
I know
um,
we didn't even get into that yet. Oh my goodness.
it's a fun
We
one.
have
I
to
do
have
do
you back
that.
for another episode. What
Yeah, that's like a whole other thing, but it's a different way to work with animals. It could be in spirit, right? Or it could be
yeah,
with animals. It could be in many different ways. But yeah, I love doing that.
what
Um,
was that? Ground and
and gold.
gold?
So groundandgold.com. Yeah,
Okay.
that is a platform. There's a sort of a group of different practitioners, and
Okay.
it's founded by one of my mentors, Catherine Schiff, who I love dearly. And so you can go on there. There's different classes and different uh, workshops and everything. And it's a pretty new platform. So that I teach that on there. And I don't know, we'll see. I'll have more stuff
Well,
coming,
that's
but
good.
lately I've
Yeah,
just
that was good. That's plenty.
and I do one-on-ones, like I do animal sessions and I do humans and I work anywhere in the world because I mean I do in person if you're in LA, but if
Yeah.
you're not, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So that's you're definitely somebody that a pet sitter could refer their customer to.
Oh, absolutely.
if
Yeah.
they felt like, someone like my client I just spoke about, right? The dog for a year and a half. I'll work on releasing my expectations of her now, but I could also,
Yeah.
in
It just needs
conjunction
like
with
10
that.
seconds. Yeah, usually it's like an animal's like they really don't need a lot. I mean, obviously if they're going through cancer or something, yes, it could be
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Especially communication session, depending on the situation, you just need like kind of one communication session and then maybe a healing session or two, depending on what it is. And sometimes it's just one communication session. And I
Yeah.
actually also work with, in terms of communication, I work with animals who have passed also.
Oh,
I,
okay.
like I told you, I've studied mediumship to a
That's
level,
right.
and I wasn't always going to be that person, but it's come up and I find that it's also part of healing, right? It's very
Yeah.
healing for closure. And some of the work I do, this is a big one, is people who know like their animals are getting ready to transition.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of emotions and pain and confusion around that. And so
Yes.
I do work with people on guiding them. Like, that's a combo of kind of healing and communication. Like, they may have questions. They may want to know what's the right time. They may want to know what the animal, bucket list items that's come up, like the dog that wants to go to the beach. The human needs healing. There's a lot with that human and all of that, but also sometimes they want, what are signs like that the animal might show me once it's passed? Like, what are some, like, they want to know these things. So that all comes up in those sessions, which is really, really, really nice. Like I'll get feedback, like, 6 months later, a year later, like, oh my God, like this happened and that happened. And it's like really sweet because it's like what they said was going to happen. and then it dies.
Oh,
And then it
that's
makes
beautiful.
the person feel so much better because they know that the
Yes.
animals still around them, which
Yeah.
they are. They're just
Yeah.
not in
Yeah.
the physical form.
Right. But it's validation. It's validation for someone who hasn't cultivated all of these
Yes.
senses of
Yeah.
theirs. Yeah.
But I do find that work, I mean, it's emotionally very heavy, even for me.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And it's like, honestly, some of the most healing work that I can offer because that's such a big transition, such a big stage for the human and the animal.
Yeah.
And it just kind of smooths everything out. It, everybody's kind of knows, and decides together like what they're going to do. And it just makes the whole process easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
My
yeah.
dog, I'll save this real quick. My heart and soul dog who passed away in 2020 at 8.5 years old, also, by the way, from cancer, from stomach cancer. He he gave me the best gift because a day after he passed, I just know it was from him. You know how your phone will sometimes think that you asked it a question? And so it'll answer it for you, right? So I have a Google phone. So it must have thought I said, "Hey Google, do this or that or whatever," right? And all of a sudden I was just standing up and I have one of those cases on my phone too. So I couldn't accidentally touch the screen. Okay? Like it's enclosed, right? The entire phone is enclosed with a whole wallet. And so I pick up my phone as I was standing up off the couch and we were just getting ready to go walk around the lake, which was like our favorite place to go every day for a quick walk. And my phone says, "Here's the top 20 playlists for nurses." Now, mind you, he was extremely ill, and I nursed him around the clock 24/7 for 2 to 3 months before he passed.
Oh,
So I was basically his nurse, his 24/7 nurse. And I said, "What did that just say?" And I took a listen. And I mean to tell you, the songs on this playlist
oh,
were speaking directly to me from him. It
yeah,
was amazing. I mean, I'm gonna tear up just talking about it, but
yeah.
hard for me to listen to it still to this day
But
because
that's beautiful.
but
It's so
it's beautiful at
beautiful.
the same time. Exactly.
There's
And
also him like telling you, "Hey, I'm still here and I'm still talking to you," you know?
yeah, and he just gave me such a gift because I I I didn't grieve. I mean, I was grieving, but I felt at peace.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's so important. And actually, it's something you just mentioned that just made me realize when we talk about clairaudience, one of the ways that your clairaudience can come through is through songs, like message
Really?
songs, specifically songs. Like your guides could be, you know, putting certain songs, like you turn on the radio and all of a sudden it's like a very
Oh,
song.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
And
yes.
crazy how that can talk. And people, again, that's so easy to overlook. Oh, you think,
Yes.
oh,
It's
coincidence, but
true.
no, no, no. Like it's crazy. Like I remember this is like years ago. I had a mare. She was I don't know over 24, but she got really, really sick, and I had this emergency call from the barn, and I had to run up there, and I had a vet coming to meet me. And I get in the car, I turn on the radio, and it was like a song. I think it was a Florence and the Machine song that talks about like the dead horse, da 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 da, like the horse in the ground. And I was like, oh God, right? And then the next song was like In the End from Lincoln Park. And I'm like, oh God. And I got there and we couldn't save her. And I did have to decide to euthanize. And it was like I was getting these songs the whole trip up, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. I know, and I knew. Like, I guess it prepared me.
Yeah,
Like I knew
right.
how it was going to be by the
Right.
time we got there. But anyway, that's an example of like, like your guides are speaking through that, and your clairaudient, like you're picking up, you get the
It's
message. So
fascinating. And
yeah,
that gave you peace probably about the decision you had to make too, right?
I think it really prepped me for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very sudden.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I had had a feeling for maybe a couple months before that all happened that our
Yeah.
time was limited.
Yeah.
But yeah.
About a month in of my dog being really sick all the time, he was sitting on my lap one morning while I was meditating on the back deck in the sunshine. And I got done meditating and I was just sitting there listening to the birds, petting him on my lap. And out of the blue, because he always sat facing out, and out of the blue, he turned around and just looked into my soul. And
Oh,
I immediately just went, no, no, because I didn't know what was wrong with him yet. I didn't know he had cancer yet. And we were in the middle of still trying to test all these things and figure out what was going on with him. And I knew in that moment when he looked at me that he was telling me it was time. And I just, it was the craziest thing. It was the craziest thing. But what is so beautiful about your story is my story. And anytime you get that from a dog is, or your pet of any sort, is that it's the more it's teaching us, the more we can become more open to the woo, quote unquote, the more we can become more open to believing that they can communicate with us, that we can communicate with them in multiple ways, as you've explained to us today here. The the more it can help us,
oh
especially
yeah.
in
It's so
all the
deeply
situations.
healing. And it
Yeah.
smooths out. I just feel like it's like, you know, your life can be like kind of ping-ponging from one crisis to another, or it could be kind of more of a smooth floating down the river journey. And you don't have to have the crazy ping pong. You That's a choice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you can
So
be an observer who's
yeah,
experiencing it, but in a somewhat detached way that it's
yeah,
also beautiful at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I love it.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you so much for being here and going so far past our time. Oh my
Thank
goodness,
you
I've
so
kept
much
you.
for having me. I mean, as you can see, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we seriously have to schedule you again for another episode because I feel like we could continue going on for hours at this point still. So thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your life. We'll have it in the description how to get a hold of Ilana Sparrow and all the wonderful things that she does for humans and animals alike. And thank you for listening to the Dog Sitter's House podcast.
You.
Thank you, Ilana.